tax us, we tax them. And no, well, we're going to be doing things. We're going to be treating people very fairly. But the word reciprocal is important. If they want to charge us, that's fine, but we're going to charge them the same thing.
That was US President-elect Donald Trump earlier today talking about his favourite word, tariffs. As his inauguration creeps closer, Trump is still threatening to slap huge taxes on foreign imports. And he doesn't just have China in his sights. He's also called out his North American neighbours, Mexico and Canada. Today, the tensions over Trump's tariff plans triggered a political drama in the Canadian capital, Ottawa, with the sudden resignation of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Freeland served as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's deputy and had been due to present autumn economic numbers in Parliament today. The two had clashed in recent weeks over fiscal policy issues, including how to respond to the threat of higher tariffs by US President-elect Donald Trump. Well, last week, Freeland spoke out in favour of a tough Canadian response if Trump goes ahead with his tariff plans.
Canada depends on the United States, absolutely. It's also true that the United States depends on us. And the reality is that Canada is by far the largest market for the United States. We are a larger export market for the US than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. That is a big deal. That gives us significant leverage. In the event that the United States were to impose unjustified tariffs on Canada, of course we would respond. And the Canadian response would necessarily be robust.
Well, the planned response from Trudeau was apparently not robust enough for Freeland, who submitted her resignation letter to the Prime Minister earlier today. And she wrote, "You and I have found ourselves at odds about the best path forward for Canada. Our country today faces a grave challenge. The incoming administration in the United States is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including a threat of 25% tariffs. We need to take that threat extremely seriously." For more, we're joined now from the Canadian capital, Ottawa, by journalist Lucy van Oldenbarneveld. Lucy, great to have you on the show. Thanks for making the time for us today on DW. So first and foremost, how big of a surprise was Chrystia Freeland's announcement today, and how big of a blow is her resignation for Prime Minister Trudeau's government?
I don't think it's overstating it to say it was a bombshell. No one saw it coming. First of all, Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister, was scheduled to deliver an economic update later this afternoon. So when news of her resignation came sort of first thing this morning, phones around the Capitol were blowing up, because although there had been talk that there are growing tensions between the Prime Minister and his finance minister, they did not see this coming. So it is a considerable blow for Justin Trudeau, because she has been, since he was elected in 2015, been his right hand. She's sort of the minister of everything. If there is a tough file, you put Chrystia Freeland on it, she'll get the job done. She's also the deputy prime minister. So having her resign on the day she is to deliver a fall economic statement, and then subsequently releasing that letter on why she resigned, was an immense blow for the prime minister.
All right, well, tell us actually more about the reasons that led to this resignation.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that are going on here. So the finance minister seems to, in recent months, been disagreeing quite significantly with the prime minister about the economic direction of the country. Recently, Justin Trudeau has said that he's going to give Canadians a bit of a tax holiday, a GST, the goods and services tax, for 2 months so that Canadians won't have to pay tax. And second of all, he is going to be paying, sending Canadians, anyone who earns under $150,000, a $250 check. Now, today, Chrystia Freeland called these political gimmicks. And so she was quite damning in her condemnation of that. So what she is doing as prime minister, as finance minister, is trying to get the country's finances back in order after the COVID pandemic and just ahead of an election that is scheduled next year. And so with the prime minister spending the way he is with these two latest moves, the tensions were growing. And so on Friday, we are now learning that the Prime Minister called her in and said that he would be shuffling her out of the finance portfolio.
Right.
There are also, and this is important context, because Mark Carney is an important ally of the Prime Minister's. He is the former governor of the Bank of Canada and of the Bank of England. The Prime Minister has been courting him for many, many months now. So the fact that he was shuffling his finance minister out, putting her somewhere in cabinet, in the hopes that maybe Mark Carney would assume this finance portfolio was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And she resigned today.
And of course, this is all coming in the context of your neighbour, your southern neighbour, Donald Trump, the soon-to-be president of the United States, threatening tariffs, which could result in serious economic issues for Canada. So how has the Canadian government been preparing for this possible introduction of tariffs?
Well, and they're not just small tariffs. Trump is proposing 25% tariffs on all Canadian exports to the United States. This would cripple the Canadian economy. So very soon after that announcement by soon-to-be President Trump, the Prime Minister flew down to Mar-a-Lago to meet with him in Florida. It was said that the meeting went well. Chrystia Freeland, I might add, went on that trip with Trudeau. And but since then, Trump has sort of been trolling the Prime Minister, calling him the governor, the 51st governor. Canada should just join the United States as the 51st state. And so, but there are some who are really calling for strong measures to have a united front where all the premiers in Canada are uniting to challenge Donald Trump and his tariffs.
And where do the Canadian people stand on the return of Donald Trump? Because you're saying there that the premiers of all the provinces of Canada, there's this proposal for them all to join. But, is there unity on how they stand on Donald Trump?
Yeah, no, an excellent question, because Canadians are largely seen to be progressive people, right? Sort of somewhere in the center of the political spectrum. But I don't know that there is widespread support for Donald Trump, but on the horizon here in Canada, there is a right-wing candidate, currently the opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, and he is expected to become the next prime minister when the election is called. The support for him has been growing. The dissatisfaction with Trudeau has been growing, and so it is uncharacteristic for Canadians to be so supportive of someone who is right of center on the political spectrum. But that seems to be where we are right now. So while there is not, I wouldn't say widespread support for Donald Trump, people are worried about him and his cabinet choices. There is growing support for this right-wing leader who's expected to win the next election.
And what could that mean then for Canada and, say, its relations with Donald Trump?
Well, that remains to be seen, because Pierre Poilievre has been he has been a vocal proponent of some of the policies that Donald Trump is proposing. He is also far more he is far more government hands off in his approach, which is also not a typically Canadian approach to governing. So it remains to be seen how he will govern, but he believes in small government, in dramatically reducing the deficit, which would mean massive layoffs in our civil service, and also more of a Canada first approach, if you will. So he'll go head to head with Donald Trump in that way, but they may have more of a natural alliance than perhaps Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump.
Well, actually, just to finish, Lucy, support for Justin Trudeau has been plummeting. Could Chrystia Freeland be a potential rival for Trudeau going forward?
Yeah, well, so she has resigned from cabinet, but she has not resigned her seat, and she has said that she's going to run again, which may set up her eventual launch into a run for the Liberal leader. So you might say, I'm not sure if rival is the right word, because it's widely expected that after the next election, Justin Trudeau will step down as Liberal leader, and certainly he's expected to lose, and so he would step down as Prime Minister as well. The Canadian public would ensure that. And so it is expected that she may run to replace him. But again, Mark Carney, who is has all kinds of credibility when it comes to economic management, is also expected to be a strong contender to replace Justin Trudeau. So it's hard to say at this point, but the fact that she will now be on the backbench and not on the front bench in cabinet will be interesting to watch how she plays this going forward.
Lucy, super interesting talking to you. And actually, Canadian politics is fascinating. Journalist Lucy van Oldenbarneveld joining us from the Canadian capital, Ottawa. Great to have you on the show.